Hey. Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's episode of The Product Angle. And on today's episode, I have Malte, the co-founder and head of product of AirFocus. Welcome.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Thank you. So tell us who you are and what you do.
Sure. So my name is Malte. I'm one of three co-founders at airfocus.com. We are a prioritization and road mapping platform primarily for product management teams. We are based out here in Germany, Hamburg. And very excited to be talking about prioritization, road mapping, and maybe a little bit about how to build a company in this remote era.
Perfect. Now, before we get into roadmaps and AirFocus, tell us something about you that we cannot Google.
That's a tricky one. I would say something that you will not find on Google is that after school, when I was 19, I was traveling Australia, and like after two weeks, I was already out of money, and I had like $100, and I was on the other side of the world. And luckily, I found some random job the next day that paid for the next night, and so I could slowly build up some money. And then I never came into the situation before, but it was quite scary being in Australia without any money anymore.
Yeah, definitely. I can imagine. I love traveling. Obviously, money. You need money to travel.
Yeah, for sure.
How did you get started in product? Because right now, as you said, you're the co-founder of AirFocus. Talk us through, that decision of you wanting to become a product manager or get into product before you founded AirFocus.
Sure. I studied business administration, and I've always loved tech and did some internships during my studies. And I kind of stumbled into my first job, which was a product management role in a SaaS company. So I think that was helping. But basically, I was just wanting to get into the tech space. And then I did a couple of things in that company, and I quickly learned that this is the most exciting part of the business. And from there, I continuously developed, I think, a feeling for building product experiences and like this kind of hub role that you have in a company where you need to talk to sales, marketing, engineers, especially, and where you need to have great collaboration skills. And yeah, that's really how I became a product manager. And in these roles, I also stumbled across that problem that we are now solving with AirFocus.
Fair enough. So what are some of these problems that you're seeing? What made you start AirFocus?
Sure. So I guess you've all experienced it in different roles, different projects, that prioritization, so identifying what to build next and road mapping, kind of visualizing the plan and communicating it to other people is a very tricky thing by nature. And I was just very frustrated in these roles that I had before I started AirFocus, because it was never clear what should actually be built and why. It was never integrated with the Jira and Trellos that we were using. So I was always working with some random Excel sheets to do prioritization, and it was very frustrating to me. And so I teamed up with Christian, who was a good friend of mine. He was now our CTO, and we built a prototype of AirFocus in just a few weekends. And it was never about starting a company or anything. It was just to solve our own problems and kind of playing with that idea. That's how it all started. And we launched on beta list, got some traction and a lot of feedback. And then after we had our first prioritization MVP, we started building out road mapping functionality. And this is how it evolved. But we were running a tech agency on the side and financed this whole thing basically through the agency. And we then one day looked ourselves in the eyes and said, hell no, we cannot have focus in our brand name and then be so distracted with this agency stuff. Let's go all in And then we also took on like some external capital to develop the idea for AirFocus even more. And yeah, here we are now having a real company with 15 people.
Wow, excellent. I mean, I love the fact that you started it to solve your own problem. You funded it through a agency that you were working at, and now you're full-time on AirFocus with a team. So congratulations for that.
Thanks.
So in your opinion, what would you say a roadmap is? What are the purposes and goals of a roadmap?
Yeah, a roadmap is really a living and breathing document that communicates what you're doing and what you will be doing in the upcoming months, quarters, even years sometimes. And to me, it's a single source of truth of like the strategic plans. It's really difficult to generalize it because there are different kinds of roadmaps. Sometimes it's really the highest level that you could think of, right below the mission or the vision of the company or the organization. Sometimes it's a, I don't know, like low level, like user story roadmap. So it really depends on the situation. But ideally, since in product development and especially with building companies, there are so many different people involved and so many components in terms of marketing, product, sales, and customer support. So you basically want to create that single source of truth that helps everyone get aligned and work towards the same objectives.
Perfect. When you start creating a roadmap, what are some of the thought processes that you should be thinking about? Inputs, or how should you start going about creating that roadmap?
Yeah. So the ultimate goal of a roadmap is that at the end, you're building a better product, or that you generate a return on investment. So that's kind of the desired goal, and the roadmap is a tool to achieve that. So what you want to have is that people who work with that roadmap, eventually, that they understand this roadmap and that they interact with it. And for that to happen, a roadmap for me needs to be aesthetically pleasing, and it should not be some Excel spreadsheet or sometimes even PowerPoint slide that you don't want to look at, where it must be like something interactive and pleasing to look at. And I think it's always good if you involve a lot of people into the prioritization and road mapping process. And that's why we also build AirFocus, because like the core functionality you could always build in an Excel spreadsheet or PowerPoint deck or whatever. But the collaboration aspects of these modern SaaS tools like ours is kind of one of the core benefits, right? Because in my opinion, you cannot have enough good opinions on your road mapping and your prioritization, and you just need to be open about things. And this doesn't mean that it should be all democratic and there shouldn't be anyone who's making the calls eventually. But the moment you open up, you also motivate people, and that's to me one of the key aspects. I'm not sure if I answered the question. You can ask more follow-up questions for that one.
No, definitely. I mean, what are some of the trends or the problems that you're seeing product managers or teams that use AirFocus? What are they saying in terms of roadmaps? What are you seeing how they are starting to prioritize? What are you seeing and hearing from your customer base?
Well, there are like these never-ending evergreen discussions around Gantt roadmaps versus Kanban roadmaps versus just maybe a simple list. Then it's about how you structure a roadmap. So should it be really just a list of features, or should it be all more around themes and actual objectives, and like even prioritizing more the objectives or the jobs to be done rather than what nitty-gritty feature you're building? So I think there's no like one truth. It always depends on the situation and the company and the stage of the company even. But what we see more and more, especially in times where there's a lot of competition and maybe limited resources, because of the economic situation, what we see is people and companies needing to focus, and that means like cutting down to the essentials and making sure that you're really doing the right stuff, and that ultimately has to do with the ultimate business goals. So you more than ever, you need to ruthlessly prioritize what to do, and that means like, is this actually increasing my revenue? Is this increasing my engagement? And like everything that doesn't massively contribute to these overlying goals is not making it to the roadmap. And since these KPIs are so important, you might want to have them even as swim lanes on your roadmap. So, so a lot of our customers used to use, for example, departments to structure their roadmap. So they have like the product team and then everything what they do. Then they have the marketing team, everything they do, if it's a company roadmap, or sometimes components. We don't see that so much anymore. It's really a lot about themes and objectives. So you could even say OKR-based roadmaps are becoming a thing now.
OKR, okay. Who owns the roadmap in your opinion?
Yeah, again, it depends on what the roadmap is. But if it's a product roadmap, for sure the product manager should own it. If it's a bigger product management department, there also needs to be someone who makes the ultimate calls. But a good CPO or a director of product is someone who includes and listens to the opinions of his team. And yeah, for that reason, we've built a functionality like Priority Poker, for example, where you can group prioritize on your strategic items, so you can get everyone basically into a game, and everyone does the priority ratings on the phone or on the MacBook, and in real time or even asynchronously. And then you just want to make the different opinions on your features more transparent, and then see when there are outliers in terms of opinions, and then discuss these and like really go deep into the pain, and then eventually make decisions on like these priority scores, which in turn then will shape your roadmap.
Yeah, that's prioritization is talked about a lot, and product managers have to do a lot of prioritization. I believe AirFocus has a PDF out on prioritization. Could you talk a little bit about what prioritization techniques you've used in AirFocus and how you prioritize what gets into the AirFocus roadmap and what doesn't?
Sure. So since we have a platform for this, we experimented, of course, with different prioritization models also to get a feeling how the scores eventually change when you use one versus the other. And so we've experimented with the RISE scoring that some of you might know from Intercom. We also mostly today use a weighted scoring framework where we take our key goals, like is it contributing to MRR growth? Is it contributing to love of the product? So is it increasing actually the love that people feel when they interact with your product? So that's actually a KPI that we came up with. And then of course on the effort side, we estimate stuff in sprints on this higher level, and we also put a risk component onto it. So all of these then get scored and then shape a priority score that we actually take serious on the road mapping. Sometimes you have to deviate from the priority scores and just do lower scored items first, because there's some dependency or other thing that doesn't make it to the score. But I guess that's okay.
Fair enough. I mean, what are some of the when you're creating a roadmap, what are your thoughts on adding dates to roadmaps? Is that something that you do, you don't do? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I hate to say again that it depends.
Okay.
But that's such a German thing also to say it depends.
Yes.
But yeah, it really depends. So for example, for internal product roadmaps, I think actually it's a good thing, and it keeps you disciplined to try to put dates on it. And then when you fail on the date, which happens of course quite often, then it just happens, and you need to find ways. But at least it's transparent that there was a date and that you missed it, and that you next time better come up with better estimates. But I think internally it's a good thing, because it forces you to really involve in the conceptualization and estimation. Obviously, there's the downside that you become too waterfallish and then never stop planning and never actually get stuff done. So it again really depends. But when you talk about a roadmap that your customers see, I would actually highly recommend to not put dates on things, because that could actually hurt your business.
Yeah, definitely. No, so can we get I guess a demo of AirFocus? And as you talk us through, if you can talk us through some of the problems that you've seen in, as you build your own roadmaps, the problems that you've solved for yourself, as you talk through some of the features and concepts that you have in AirFocus?
Well, sure. I mean, I would do that while I give the demo.
Yep.
I guess the problems are very often the same. So figuring out what to do next, and then at the same time, like committing to something, and at the same time being flexible to adjusting the roadmap is really more an art than a science. But yeah, it's a tricky one, and I wouldn't say that I've completely figured it out yet. Probably will never.
Yeah.
But yeah. So should I give you the walkthrough?
Yes. So I've put your screen on the stream right now. So we're actually seeing the AirFocus right now.
Perfect. Let me zoom in a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let me go to the homepage. So here, this is where you find all your workspaces, and you can have many workspaces in AirFocus. And when you create a new workspace, we have a couple of templates that you can select from. So we just basically collected all the wisdom and proven methodologies that are out there and put them into a template library. So ranging from product, business, marketing, and technology to like other templates like the RISE scoring and the weighted shortest job first framework, and like product portfolio roadmaps and so on. But for this demo, let's jump into the Boom video app. So you see that there's a little joke here in the workspace title. This is because we are Germans and we are very funny.
Mm-hmm.
So every workspace in AirFocus has 4 key screens. So this is the items view. Then we have a chart view that visualizes your priority. And then we have 2 roadmap views, a Kanban board and a timeline Gantt chart.
Okay.
But let's really start here at the items view. This is the heart and soul of AirFocus, and you find your strategic items here in this very first column. So, and these items are also grouped into these buckets. So it's what you see here is a theme-based approach.
Okay.
So we use stickiness here as a container and a couple of items that pay into stickiness. Then we have enterprise readiness, infrastructure, product expansion, and they all have some items. And AirFocus is really a cross-platform or cross-tool platform. So we integrate with all of the major project management or development tools like Trello, Jira, Azure DevOps, Asana, Clubhouse, and so on. And really to give you like this bird's eye view, even if you have teams working in different tools. And this, what you see here, this is the prioritization framework that I was talking about earlier. So in this example, you have 2 value criteria: customer value, which is measured in t-shirt sizes, and then we have reach. So what's the reach? How many people will I reach when I develop this Google Calendar integration, for example? And this is a percentage value. And then we measure effort in this example in man days,
okay,
which is a general number. And then we also have a third dimension here on the higher level, which is revenue. So how much is this impacting my revenue? And this whole prioritization framework here is completely customizable. So you can change weightings, you can change the criteria that you want to have here really based on your needs. And if you're like really into math, you can even adjust the custom formula for the prioritization score, but that's nothing that I would recommend at this stage.
Okay.
And yeah, and the idea is that you insert these ratings here together with your team ideally. And we also have this bespoke priority poker feature here where you can open up this whole rating process to a bigger audience. So to explain that, it's actually much better if I quickly go to the website. So here you can see a good example. So a couple of people rate the development of the mobile app, and they now rate the user value, and they settle on the t-shirt size L for this one, although they have some different opinions on it. And then they agree on a development effort of 180 days. And then based on this, our system calculates a 85 priority score, which you then use to drive your roadmap. So this is really a simplified version of how you could play priority poker in Airfocus. Anyways, the idea is you come up with these ratings, and we then calculate this priority score. And this score is really a North Star metric for you that helps you make better decisions along the road mapping process. And what you want to do next is you want to go to your chart view, where you find these strategic items mapped out on a 2x2 chart. So you find the quick wins on the top left, so high value, low effort, and then the items that you should not touch on the bottom right. And then for all these others here, there's kind of trade-off to be made. And the idea is that you now go into these items and you make decisions on even whether they are dependencies, who should be in charge of these items. Maybe you already know when to do them in terms of the Kanban board, or you have a timeline in mind already for the Gantt chart. And when you make these decisions here on the chart view, you have basically made the decisions also for the roadmap. And now looking at the board view here, which is a classic Kanban board, you can use drag and drop to adjust everything. Maybe you don't want to go future, next, and now, but you want to go by quarters, then you simply change it here. Okay. So Airfocus is really built around flexibility and ease of use. And you can always visualize your data in different ways. So maybe you don't want to show these swim lanes, then you just go like this. And yeah, on the timeline view, it's a time-based roadmap that also puts these items into these themes. So, and you can use drag and drop to move these items around and create dependencies on the fly. And yeah, and again, you can decide to show the data in different ways. So some people really prefer a quarterly zoom, so maybe even plan a year or more, and some even want to go really deep into the weekly zoom level and yeah, visualize the data that way. And yeah, all of the Airfocus views can be exported with just a few clicks, and you can create beautiful share links very easily and just share the data that you want to share and send them to your C-level, and then they will get a version like this where they have read access, and but they cannot really do anything here. And it's, in my opinion, a very powerful feature in getting everyone aligned in the organization.
Definitely. Now, talk a little bit more about the dependencies. Is there a way to add in dependencies, but also know what comes first, what comes second, or talk a little bit more about how dependencies work with Airfocus?
Yeah, sure. Well, it's I wouldn't say it's a dumb feature, but we cannot make the decision for you whether something is dependent on the completion of another item or not.
Okay.
That's still something that's very unique, and we probably would need to have some very sophisticated AI to solve this. But even that is probably like a few years ahead. But the score basically tells you how important something is, and then whether this comes after this is something that you need to figure out in the discussions with the other peoples, and that's why the sharing and the communication of your roadmaps is so crucial. But a lot of that data you already have in your Jira or Trello, and it's for us just to basically sync the data the right way, so we pre-populate the roadmaps for you.
Definitely. And how are you bringing in, or where do you store all the ideas and the customer feedback that you receive? How do you merge that into AirFocus?
Yeah, so a good way to do that is actually create a separate workspace for that, where you have all that data get inserted via an integration.
Okay.
And then when you have done some structuring and pre-prioritization here, what you want to do is you want to move these items that actually should make it to your main roadmap. You should move them over to that other workspace, that single point of truth that I was mentioning.
Okay.
And then communicate them from there. That said, we are building out a lot of functionality right now to better basically solve that customer feedback and consolidation aspect of data.
Got it. Do you make your roadmap public by any chance?
Yes, we do. We make it public on our own using AirFocus, and at the same time, you can also find it totally synced with Trello.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. I'll take a look at that later on.
Yeah.
Anything else you'd like to show on AirFocus before I bring us back to the screen?
No, we are like all about ease of use and simplicity, and that's why there's right now nothing else that I would like to show, because keep it easy, keep it lean.
Got it. So I got us back on the screen. So in terms of your suggestions or what lessons learned, what are some of the things that you would say to junior to mid-level product managers who are starting to get access to the roadmap and starting to think about how to prioritize, how to build and create a roadmap? What are some of the learnings that you like to pass on?
Sure. So I think one thing that sometimes gets overlooked is that it's not always about data and analyzing data and being like this godfather of data and insights and so on. It's very often about using your head and being able to have like high level conversations and trying to get the big picture painted out somehow. And to me, that's always like the ultimate skill to bring it together, right? Looking at the data, looking at competitors, talking to customers, and learning how they actually use the software, but at the same time being critical about what they want and what they ask for, and then bringing it all together in this hub or in a document, and then being able to go from there. This is really the key skill to me, and I don't think I'm telling really anything new here. So what I really like is the Amazon approach of starting with the press release first before you build anything.
Okay.
And this is exactly what I said. So the press release should cover the essentials of the feature or product that you're building, and then you reverse engineer it from there towards the development task that you ultimately build.
Got it. Now, for startups who are raising capital, what kind of advice would you give them in terms of creating that roadmap to show to investors?
Yeah, that product roadmap. Yeah, so ideally you already have a product up and running and have some traction. So that would be actually my first advice that is independent from the product roadmap is try to get some traction without investors.
Okay.
And then only go to investors with like a lot of leverage and where you can basically pick which investor you want to go with. And and then in terms of road mapping, it again depends. So our roadmap in the for Seed Plus round was just a slide with like five items. So we actually didn't share a very sophisticated roadmap. It was really high level. What is this company all about in 5 years?
Got it. How does AirFocus manage documentation? What are some of the tools or some of the techniques that you use to keep everyone aligned on the same page between various departments and knowledge management?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think what again, the single source of single point of truth is also very important here, and we are using Notion for that.
Okay.
I don't know if you know it, but it's a great tool that basically does everything, and it's to be honest not perfect for task management, for example. So it actually sometimes it's not a lot of fun to do task management, but still you have everything in this one place, and then I'm personally willing to make some compromises in terms of how task management is going, because I can write a task and then I figure out that this task actually is a concept, then I just convert it to a page. I write like super complicated, beautiful pages that are much better than a Google Docs, and it's all in one place. You can always mention people. So we have this rule here at AirFocus: when it's not in Notion, it's not a thing.
Okay.
And I think that's I can only very highly recommend building your companies aside from development around Notion.
Got it.
And Slack, of course.
Yes. They're the popular tools that get mentioned quite frequently. So I'd like to say thank you, Malte, for appearing on the show. Before we leave, is there anything you'd like to say to junior to mid-level product managers, founders, anything that you've learned, or any advice or best practices that you want to leave the audience with around some of the learnings that you've learned over the course of your career as a product manager and now co-founder?
I think try to stay open-minded about things and developments, and try to speak to as many people in different sectors and industries as possible. So I, for example, have a LinkedIn bot running for 2 years now that's connecting with a ton of product managers every day, and I had so many great discussions and meetings with these people, just because I had this automated process running for the initial outreach, because I didn't want to go to LinkedIn and do it 100 times per day. But then when they replied, they were like these awesome conversations, and I learned so much about how these people work and so on. And I can only recommend just talking to a lot of people. You're always learning more things, and yeah, just get smarter by talking to people.
Perfect.
That makes sense.
It does. I tweeted the other day, I think it was, it boils down to two things, where you understand people, talk to people, and you provide them some kind of meaningful value.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Couldn't agree more.
Well, yeah. Thank you so much for appearing on the Product Angle show. I'm excited to create a demo account, a trial account, and play around with AirFocus. And hopefully I'll have an article soon on some of the features and what I thought of AirFocus.
Can't wait to read that. Thanks for having me. It was really a pleasure.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.